just about staying above, but we could see temperatures in parts of Scotland getting as low as -10 Celsius. So very cold, frosty, icy start to the day for many of us tomorrow morning. Widespread ice, could be a bit more snow in some places as well, so that could cause some problems first thing. Also an ice risk across Northern Ireland and much of England and Wales as well. But all the while there will be a lot of bright sunny weather to be had. Towards the south, less of an ice risk here. There could be some around, but even so there could be some frost in places as well. So plenty of sunshine on offer first thing tomorrow morning, perhaps just a bit more cloud towards the east. However, as we go through the day, some high-level clouds going to push its way in from the west, so that sunshine is going to turn a bit milky, a bit hazy perhaps, before some wet weather arrives from the west later on. Temperatures are going to be markedly down compared to of late, but with that sunshine, well, it's going to feel relatively pleasant. Many of us have been crying for some sunshine recently. Then as we go through the evening, as I mentioned, we have some wet and windy weather coming in, and that's going to bring some hill snow, particularly across northern and eastern parts as we go overnight into Sunday. More changeable weather to come as we go into next week. Whatever you're up to, enjoy the rest of your day.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you to our global community for watching and listening to GB News. We're not only the #1 news channel in Britain, we're chosen by you around the world.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the A9 southbound, traffic is restricted between Stockbridge and Queen Victoria after a crash. The M4 westbound is congested between junction 23A at Mager to junction 26 at Malpass. In Lancashire, the M6 northbound exit slip at junction 29 is shut following a collision, with conditions easing around 7:45 tonight. In Oxfordshire, the M40 northbound at junction 6 has 2 lanes closed after an accident, with delays easing by 7:20 this evening. And on the trains, cross-country disrupted between Brockenhurst and Bournemouth, and Gatwick Express between East Croydon and Clapham Junction. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
You could win cash and the ultimate holiday in our 2-part Great British giveaway. Thanks to Riviera Travel, you could be jetting off on a £10,000 dream holiday for 2 people. With flights, transfers and luxury accommodation included, you'll get to choose the kind of holiday you want. Plus, we're going to give you £30,000 in tax-free cash.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
All too often, people will be sitting at home watching a press conference live, and they'll hear loads of questions being asked, and they'll be thinking, that's not my question. That's not my concern.
We don't care whose feathers we ruffle. We ask the questions that you want answering.
You're all standing on the street protesting and want to have an open discussion.
My name is Patrick Christies. I do a show for GB News in the UK.
Is it possible to talk to you quickly?
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, this is the best view ever of Whitehall, looking out across all the tractor drivers of England who've come together to make their point.
Hello, so as you can see, I'm here in Westminster as the protest begins.
Yes, I'm very much in the thick of it.
Look, we're challenging narratives here at GB News, and that's what sets us apart.
Good evening, it is 6 o'clock. I'm Nana Acquia. You are watching Dewbs and Co. So coming up in the next hour, 2 men responsible for a plot to murder as many Jews as possible in Manchester have been sentenced to life in jail. Is the British Jewish community safe? And a major legal blow for the government as the High Court says that the ban on Palestine Action was unlawful. Now, that is despite high-profile protests, including a break-in at RAF Brize Norton. Switzerland is set to hold a referendum on capping its population, so should Britain follow suit? And backlash in East Sussex as a councillor plans to hand out Valentine's gifts to, yes, you guessed it, migrants. So on my panel tonight, Reform UK board member Gowan Towler and also Labour councillor Stuart Fawcett. Before we get started, let's get your latest news headlines.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wenser with your headlines from the GB newsroom. Lord Mandelson has reportedly been summoned to appear before Congress to testify about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. It's understood House Democrats sent a letter to the disgraced peer on Friday calling on him to give evidence to the Oversight Committee as part of their investigation into the paedophile. Now, Sir Keir Starmer is attending the Munich Security Conference today, where the German Chancellor has warned that the world order as we know it no longer exists. The Prime Minister arrived with the Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper ahead of the summit, where global leaders will discuss the top issues facing the world in 2026, including the Transatlantic Alliance and Europe's security architecture. Back in the UK, police have stopped arresting Palestine Action supporters despite a terror ban on the group remaining in force. It's after the High Court ruled the group's proscription was unlawful, a decision the government will appeal. The proscription, which began last summer, made being a member of the group or supporting it a criminal offence punishable by up to 14 years in prison. The Met Police, meanwhile, said it will focus on gathering evidence of potential offences where support for Palestine Action is expressed, rather than making arrests at that time. Elsewhere, 2 men responsible for a plot to murder as many Jews as possible in Manchester have been sentenced to life in jail after they were found guilty of preparing attacks between December 2023 and May 2024. Waleed Sadawi and Ammar Hussein were foiled by Greater Manchester Police and counter-terrorism as they planned to target Jewish schools, synagogues and shops. Both men were told they'd spend a minimum of 37 and 26 years respectively in jail by the judge at Preston Crown Court. Waleed's brother Balil was sentenced to 6 years for failing to disclose the plot. Greater Manchester Police Assistant Chief Constable Robert Potts delivered a statement.
Waleed Sadawi and Ammar Hussein intended to target members of the Jewish community in an evil act born out of hatred. If they had been successful, then what would have followed would have been devastating and potentially one of the deadliest terrorist attacks to ever take place on UK soil.
Meanwhile, a man who repeatedly stabbed a uniformed British Army officer with 2 knives has been sentenced to life with a minimum term of 7 years and 162 days. Anthony Assan, who stabbed Lieutenant Colonel Mark Teaton outside Brompton Barracks in 2024, was told he's unlikely to ever be released back into the community. Mr Justice Pickens says Assan will be detained in hospital for as long as necessary due to his ill mental health. And major hospitals have declared a critical incident after facing significant pressures on their services. Nottingham University Hospital's NHS Trust said their emergency departments are also dealing with overwhelming demand that has seen lengthy waits for patients. Bosses are urging members of the public only to attend A&E for life-threatening emergencies. Those are your latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Nana.
So good evening and welcome to Dewbs and Co with me, Nana Aquia. Now joining me until 7, my panel, Reform UK Board member Gowan Towler and also Labour councillor Stuart Fawcett. And don't forget as well, you can always get in touch. I'd love to hear what you think in the usual ways. gbnews.com/your say, or you can scan that QR code. Well, let's start with the big story that's just happened. 2 men who plotted to murder as many Jewish people as possible in Manchester have been jailed for life. Walid Sadawi and Ammar Hussein were convicted of preparing terrorist attacks between December 2023 and May 2024. Now, prosecutors said that they had planned to target Jewish schools, synagogues and shops, and the pair were stopped by Greater Manchester Police. I've got to say, well done to Greater Manchester Police. At last, they've done something very, very good, and, of course, counter-terrorism officers before they could carry out their plans. Investigators uncovered a cache of rifles, handguns and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. Now, the court heard that they hope to become martyrs in an attack aimed at killing as many members of the Jewish community as possible. Absolutely abhorrent. Now, the Chief Constable for Greater Manchester Police, Stephen Watson, has warned about the threat to British Jews after he helped foil what would have been a devastating terrorist attack.
We've seen a terrorist atrocity in Manchester at a synagogue on Yom Kippur. We've seen the events on Bondi Beach in Sydney. We are seeing the manifestation of hatred moving beyond our shores globally. And this is a threat to all of us. It is a threat to our Jewish communities, and if our Jewish communities are under threat, we are all under threat, and we all owe to our Jewish friends and neighbours a steadfast duty to stand with them in all circumstances, and that is certainly what we do as part of Greater Manchester Police, the counter-terrorism network and beyond.
Well, yeah, good on Greater Manchester Police for that one. Apparently somebody went undercover and that's how they pretended to be part of it all, and then that's how they uncovered it, and eventually they caught one of the suspects when he was actually picking up a load of guns and things that he bought. So all credit to them. Well, joining me this afternoon, evening, is Stuart Fawcett, who I want to call Stuart Tapp. But as I said, it's the same thing, just...
We're on the British side of the pond tonight.
All right, Stuart Fawcett, like Farah. And Gowan Towler, thank you very much for joining me. All right, look, I want to ask you, is the British Jewish community safe?
I think at the moment, to our great shame, sadly, I don't believe they are. However, I think there is a lot of effort going in by both Community Security Trust and indeed police forces like Greater Manchester, who are... What you are witnessing here is a real globalised hatred of Jews that is being peddled through various different points of media. Now, credit to Sir Stephen Watson, who I've seen speak firsthand on this particular issue, who's shown real leadership in action here in Manchester, and his officers that have served under him that are taking the action that's needed to address this. In this particular case, this is Islamic terrorism that is going on. That is specifically targeting Jews. But we also have other cases of everyday extremism where Jews are being made to fear for their very lives. I've heard of a case firsthand from Sir Stephen Watson of children, young girls, who were concerned about going to a birthday party and about being attacked. This is happening in Britain to Jews here. And credit to Sir Stephen Watson, unlike the press release we've seen today from the Metropolitan Police, who is trying to look at the application of the law in terms of the CPS and prosecution, Sir Stephen has put a very clear mandate in place to protect Jews, which is to protect people first and not try and forecast whether there's going to be any action by the CPS, but actually make sure people are safe. And that is what the Jewish community...
But what about all the hate marches? I mean, we had all those hate marches going on and on. To me, it was quite obvious that if you allow people to... Even there were some people saying, oh, it's terrible what's happening in Gaza, we're praying for the people in Gaza. But if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. If you join a group of people who are... And there's people... There were all those horrible slogans they were chanting, from the river to the sea. It's just disgraceful.
Stephen highlighted one of the points, this is the globalised intifada. This is what that means.
Yeah.
It's not some sort of anodyne slogan to shout on a street corner. Globalising the Intifada means 25 people dead on the beach in Bondi. It means people dead outside a synagogue in Manchester. It means this sort of stuff. It is absolutely beyond the pale. But the original question, are Jews in Britain safe? No, they're not.
No.
And even if we talk about what Sir Stephen Watson's been doing and the Community Safety Trust and things that give them more money to do more protection, but that means pretty much armed guards outside primary schools. That's not safety. That's not being part of our community. And it is beholden, and it's not just the police's actions, the Community Safety Trust's actions, the Jewish community's actions. We've actually got to look very seriously at those communities where this is bubbling out of. And it's not just the Islamists.
No.
They are supported by a great tranche of supposedly well-meaning middle-class people in this country whose hatred for America and therefore Israel has burnt their minds.
Well, what about schools, though? Well, what about the sort of indoctrination that we're seeing at universities and schools and places in this country?
I think there's a real deep penetration. I think the anti-Semitism has evolved into this quotation of anti-Zionism, which is a different form of anti-Semitism, because what that is saying is that Jews don't deserve to have self-determination like anybody else in a democracy. And this is now...
If they can't be safe in England,
where can
if they cannot be safe here, where can they be safe?
And it's almost... What this is a failure of leadership in action, to actually take action more than words. If we're having to spend more on security for certain communities, you say with schools, etc., you know, that means that we have failed. And why we are failing is because, as you have pointed out, Garin, there are a small number of violent extremists, terrorists, and then for every one of those, there could perhaps be another 10 people who perhaps sympathise with them and join the fanfare, and that is how this is permeated.
I think you're wrong. I don't think it's a small number.
I don't think it's a small number either.
I think it's a load of people.
The polling has suggested it's up to 40%. I mean, it's just not... 40% of 2 million people is an awful lot of people.
Absolutely, yeah, I totally agree with you.
And I note that one of these terrorists who's been locked up today is described as a man from Wigan. He's not a man from Wigan. He's a man from Tunisia. He's not... we describe him in the headlines as a man from Wigan. He's not. He's from Tunisia. Why are we importing people who so go against our culture, our tradition, our history, that they wish to murder people just for having a different religion?
Do you think that because of our sort of lackadaisical sort of immigration system and the broken borders and people breaking into our country, that we are going to have a very serious problem very soon?
I think we've got a very serious problem right now, frankly.
Yeah.
It's not a question of very soon. It's there. It's happened. It's happening. The police have been brilliant in this case. Absolutely. But as they always said, they have to be lucky every time.
But this is also an internet... We have a problem here in this country. Our demographics have changed. There's no doubt about that. That has happened. But this is a worldwide problem, which is finding common denominators in order to stoke this hatred. Garen, you rightly mentioned earlier something called the Intifada. There's a saying, which is an awful saying, can globalise the Intifada. For those who don't know, an Intifada is a direct attack upon Jews. The worst one was the Second Intifada, where terrorists en masse murdered, maimed and terrorised thousands of Jews across Israel, completely unprovoked. And that is what that is trying to call for. Now, when we allow that chant to continue in this country, we are condoning that to happen. And there should be no doubt about it that that is open, everyday extremism.
But it's like between the river and the sea stuff. Yeah. That is the extinction and the eradication of Israel.
Party that's asking to do that as part of foreign policy.
And yet we have a government that recognised Palestine that is essentially demanding the same thing, because Hamas are the government of Palestine and they wish to see the end of Israel as a state. Our government is weak in the face of terror and terrorist sympathisers, allowing those marches. I mean, before the very first march, after October the 7th, before the very first march, Tice stood up and said this shouldn't be allowed because that's what's going to happen. And that's what did happen. You had cars driving past and loudspeakers saying, rape their daughters, kill their mothers. And yet, nothing, no charges. People get excited when somebody... there's a... How dare you charge somebody for standing up to genocide? It's not genocide.
It was a war. I mean,
and what we saw in Brighton with the Sky report the other day, knocking on doors, will you support this boycott? And if you don't, take down their names and address. When are they going to start putting stars on their doors?
This is a really important point. Let's just wind ourselves back 100 years. If things like this were happening in Britain, we would find it abhorrent and awful. Hundreds of thousands of people gave their lives to protect freedom and fight the tyranny that we now seem to be seeing on our streets. And you mentioned something that happened in Brighton earlier this week, where Sky News had covered a particular individual knocking on doors asking people to boycott Jewish-owned businesses and products. And they were knocking on people's doors and noting down people's data. And he openly said, I'm anti-Zionist, I want to boycott Jewish businesses. The last time that happened...
And it's
in a society was Kristallnacht in Nazi Germany, where people destroyed Jewish-owned businesses and they ostracised them. Within 6 years, right, Jews had been almost completely wiped out.
So what are your government going to do about it? Because they're in power now. They allowed the marches. In fact, it would seem that the Labour government, they want to have all the Muslims on side and they're doing everything they can to appease the Muslim population. But it does feel like that some of the Jewish people are being left behind. And, you know, this is not good.
I think we need to have a very clear position.
Stephen sent a message saying that were there as many Jews in Britain as there are Muslims, I have no doubt that they would be listened to by the government to a greater degree.
Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, is an openly Muslim woman. And she has very clearly stated today in her statement regarding the High Court decision over Palestine Action, as a Muslim woman, she has said very clearly that these things do not align with our values. This open hatred of Jews and attacking Jews through the medium of anti-Zionism is not going to be accepted. And I think we need to be very clear to say that these are not our values, and those who don't share these, we are not going to seek your support.
Well, isn't this the same Shabana Mahmood who was criticised by Jewish leaders over her anti-Israel protest that forced a supermarket to close? I mean, she was part of the demonstration outside a branch of Sainsbury's in Birmingham. But I mean, you know, she might be the Home Secretary, and I appreciate that, but this is the sort of thing you get. You get people... She was a front bencher at the time, and she was still doing that. And that wouldn't... Even though she might be Home Secretary,
thinking about this Brighton business that we've been talking about, Carla Jenner, senior Green politician, MP, she's doing exactly the same in Bristol and is proud of it. They are proud of this.
Just you're saying exactly the same thing. Just let the viewers and listeners know what.
Yeah, so, but they are. You saw Carla Jenner supporting what was going on in Brighton and doing the same in Bristol. You're talking about Shabana Mahmood. Yes, as Home Secretary, she has made that statement. You are quite right. But as a campaigning politician, I'm sorry, but her record isn't quite so good. And it is difficult. It's hard. There are 80 seats, I think, where the Muslim population make the difference between winning and losing in those seats. It's very hard for a party that has spent a lot of time building up that block vote to turn around to them and say no.
Do you think that Shabana Mahmood can be trusted to be quite neutral on this, even though she's making the right sounds? She also went on social media at that time and told people to boycott Israeli goods and things. I mean, on a boycott of Israel.
Are you referring back to when it was the protest?
This was a while ago. I mean, it was some years ago. But still.
And I think that's really important because people in their journey through politics get involved in campaigns and perhaps their perspective changes once they learn more through that particular journey in politics. From what I've seen firsthand from Shabana Mahmood, I think she has a very clear outlook on the fact that the things that are happening to the Jewish community in this country are absolutely abhorrent, and she wants to take actions within her role as Home Secretary in order to do it. And I do not think her Muslim faith gets in the way of that at all. In fact, I think it aids it to the extent where she wants
my only comeback on that is, fine, believe that as you will, but if I was Jewish, knowing what she said in the past to get votes, would I have that confidence that you suggest we should have? I don't think I would, because of what she said in the past. Now, you may say, oh, that was just campaigning. Yeah, it was campaigning to get the votes of those people who hate Jews.
And I think she needs to be very clear now on where she stands on that, and I believe her actions are doing that.
All right, well, look, I mean, that was in 2014, so it was some time ago.
It was 10 years ago, but
it's
still.
10 years ago. But this sort of hatred is very deep-seated, I think. It's not, and I'm not referring specifically to Shabana, but I'm just talking, this hatred towards Jewish people is a very deep-seated thing. It's endemic, and it feels like those who have that hatred, many were brought up like that. So it's a concern. But stay with us, because coming up, another major legal blow for the government as the High Court says that the ban on Palestine Action was unlawful. That is despite high-profile protests, including a break-in at RAF Briars Norton.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, good evening. Welcome. This is Dewbs and Co. with me, Nana Aquia. I'm sitting in for Michelle and keeping me company until 7, Gawain Towler and also Stuart Fawcett. Now, we've been talking a lot about the situation with the Jewish community and the fact that these two awful men were sent to prison for life, but it is sort of life. I hope it actually means proper life, because sometimes it doesn't. Trevor says that when are we going to end this con of sentencing to life imprisonment when 99% of the time it means nothing of the sort? Life with a minimum term of 7 years and 162 days in prison is ridiculous. And Brady says don't bother jailing them, just deport them and their families. This is referring to the two men that were sentenced today for plotting to murder as many Jews as they could, which is absolutely horrendous, really, frankly. I don't know what is wrong with people. But as we move on to this story, the High Court has ruled that a decision to ban Palestine Action as a terrorist organisation organisation was unlawful. Now, the legal challenge was brought by the group's co-founder after former Home Secretary Yvette Cooper moved to proscribe the organisation following a series of incidents, which one of them was actually activists breaking into RAF Bryce Norton and spray painting 2 aircraft, which they actually destroyed, which would have been dangerous for someone to fly. Now, the current Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, says that she is disappointed by the ruling, has confirmed the government will appeal the decision. The Metropolitan Police, meanwhile, said it would focus on gathering evidence of potential offences where support for Palestine Action is expressed, rather than making arrests at the time in its response to the ruling. Panel, your thoughts. Graham Cowler, do you think that this sort of emboldens people?
Of course it does.
To carry on with this?
Of course it does. I mean, and I would have thought if the government is appealing, it's interesting, the police are now rolling back what they do, but until the appeal is... The legislation is there.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, Palestine Action is still regarded as a terrorist group, despite this court judgment, until such time as the Court of Appeal has judged.
I think it's the 20th of February.
But the point is that they still are. So the police to say, right, we're giving in already. But I mean, look, this is an organisation... no, actually, that's not the important thing. The important thing is this was voted through the House by people elected by this country, by the people of this country. It was a democratic decision by the sovereign parliament of this country. So how on earth can we have the courts overturn that? And it was it was a massive majority. It's a massive majority. So what is going on? Who governs the country?
Why is that the courts can just overrule the government? It seems absolutely absurd. I guess, isn't it for the courts to enforce the law, but not to create the law?
So the courts can't overrule legislation that has been given assent through Parliament. That is sovereign. The courts can determine interpretation of law, because that's how our legal system works, as you've seen in cases Supreme Court with the identification of women, etc., and the interpretation of certain laws. But in this particular case, the law is still the law. Palestine Action is a proscribed organisation, and I wholly support that. I think it was the right move, perhaps even a little bit later than it should have been. But nonetheless, they are a proscribed organisation. And why? Because the kind of people that get involved in that to a greater or lesser extent are condoning attacks upon our country's own security apparatus. These people went into RAF Bryce Norton and decided that their cause, which, quite frankly, they know very little about in our full context of history, their cause was so important that they had the right to put our security of our nation at risk. And for that reason, I believe it warrants the fact that the organisation should be deemed a terror organisation. And not only that, because of that case, there's also other cases where they've used acts of economic terror, trying to destroy economic apparatuses that they feel morally objected to. Now, in terms of the Metropolitan Police's statement today, I don't think it's right. The police do not get to choose how they interpret the law, determined by whether the fact they think they can get prosecutions. It will be too late when more Jews get harmed in this country, and all the Metropolitan Police has to show is to say, well, we were watching them and we knew they were up to something. That will not be good enough. The law is the law. They should continue to be arrested, because often these people will have links to nefarious activities that could be putting people's safety at risk. I think we need to follow the example that's being set in Greater Manchester, where the policing mandate is much different. The mandate is to protect people first and look at the integrity of being able to prosecute afterwards. It is no good when the horse is bolted and you're trying to shut the gate, because we will have more Jews harmed in this country, and it has to stop.
It won't just be Jews.
Well, I think the judge's point was that it was disproportionate, wasn't it? So if you try to parallel Palestine Action with ISIS, it doesn't kind of wash, does it? So that's what the judge's point was. But I don't think you need to wait for someone to get to that point. And those things, something like ISIS is rooted in sort of a rotten ideology, and that people become involved in it, and then it becomes more.
The suicidal empathy is the rotten ideology of these people. It's suicidal empathy. They wish to destroy our country in order to promote a cause that actually is murderous. That is absolutely abhorrent. And yes, I mean, that's how the court did judge, you're right. However, Parliament, which is sovereign, voted to do something. Parliament makes those decisions on behalf of the people of this country who have voted for its members. They give instruction to the courts, and the courts interpret those instructions. But the instruction was pretty clear. This organisation was prescribed as a terrorist organisation with the support of a vast majority of the members of the House of Commons. Therefore, the court does not really have the rights to overturn that. It just doesn't. And they're saying that only 6 or 7 people comes under the bracket as what the court defines as terrorist. So their actions are terrorist, but the organisation isn't. But they're the representatives of the organisation and, as I say, Parliament, elected members of the House of Commons, voted in vast majority to prescribe this organisation. Done.
Well, Peter says, I'm not surprised by the court's judgment on Palestine Action. All our judges are left-wing.
Well, they're not, and I don't think that's fair. But the fact is that, in the end, it is up to Parliament, which is our sovereign body, to make these decisions. And this is a clear case of judicial overreach. I understand there's an ECHR aspect to this, but this is just clearly judicial overreach. And it's not just this case. This has been happening. There was a green organisation that was breaking jets as well a couple of years ago, and they got let off, having broken the noses of these jets, and they were found not guilty. Clear guilty. They filmed themselves doing it. When you had the Just Stop Oil people cutting up paintings, filming themselves, no case to answer. This is not just this case. This is a constant.
But they, I mean, like, look, they would argue that this is more direct action, not really terrorist action. So
smashing our security infrastructure is terrorism.
Compare it to Just Stop Oil pouring yellow paint on things, you know. What is that?
My point is, we have this judicial overreach. There is a clear breach of the law, and in many cases, there's no case to answer. Cutting up a painting, being filmed to do so, that is a clear breach of the law.
But I think we need to look at the...
But because it's political, oh no, we don't touch it.
And also possibly because it's a lot of white middle-class people who look very, very sensible, who you wouldn't...
Well, they don't look sensible.
Well, but you know what I mean? As in, a lot of them were very, very old, weren't they? Had nothing else to do, didn't they?
No, you're right. You were absolutely right.
Rupert Fortescue-Smythe.
Because this is the reach of this particular movement at the moment. At the one end, it's carrying out these acts of vandalism and terror, but that is permeating through lots of different demographics. And this is bringing extremism to parts of society that you would never expect it to come to. Earlier this week in Brighton, Sky News followed a middle-class, I would say, white man, essentially trying to say to people on the doors of Brighton, please don't buy goods by Israeli or Jewish organisations because we want to boycott them because of my particular political cause. I've actually wrote a piece on this for GB News, which is coming out shortly, outlining it and the parallels that it is. And this is now being mainstreamed. Green MP Carla Denyer, I believe, is trying to replicate this in her seat in Bristol. And I can't emphasise enough, the last time this sort of thing happened was in Nazi Germany on Kristallnacht, boycotting Jewish businesses. And it is coming from this particular movement that Palestine Action tries to create these spectrums of extremism and extremist thought.
It's this green left, hard left organisation. But what's amazing about this, of course, is they look at reform and say, oh, we see reform and we feel still parallels from 1930. Rubbish. They're the ones. They're the brown shirts.
Well, it's sort of mission creep, isn't it? They're just little pockets that don't seem that bad, but they're creeping in different parts of the population, and I think it's quite frightening. Stay with us, though. Loads more still to come. On the way, a major legal blow for the government as the High Court says that Palestine Action is banned. What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say. Do not go anywhere. We'll be back after the break.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Having seen so much stormy weather across parts of Western Europe recently, finally a change is on the way. It's still windy this weekend in Spain, Portugal and across much of Italy. Spells of rain moving in here, reaching eventually parts of Greece and Croatia. But it is looking drier and brighter for much of Spain and Portugal despite that strong wind. And that steady improvement continues into next week. Still breezy with showers around, but not as stormy as it has been.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello again, very good evening to you. I'm here with your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Yes, there will be quite a bit of sunshine for many of us tomorrow, but before that we have a cold and for many icy night to come. That's because the weather systems that have brought today's cloud and rain, they are shifting further southwards, allowing for clearer, colder air to come in from the north. So still cloudy with some outbreaks of rain for a little while yet across central southern parts of England and Wales, but even here it's turning dry, and then widely across the country there'll be a lot of dry and clear weather. With that cold air and those clear skies, temperatures are going to drop, just about holding up above freezing towards the south in some towns and cities, but most places falling a fair few degrees below. In fact, across parts of Scotland it could get into negative double figures. So a harsh frost for many of us, widespread icy conditions. There could be still some lying snow in places, and the ice is going to lead to some difficult driving conditions as well first thing tomorrow morning. The ice risk is across much of the country, really, just towards the south-southeast where temperatures hold up that little bit higher. Less of an ice risk here, but nonetheless there could still be some frost in prone spots as well. So a cold, frosty, icy start to the day tomorrow, but a bright one. Lots of sunshine on offer for most of us. Perhaps a bit of cloud lingering across some parts of East Anglia, but elsewhere a sunny morning before some high-level cloud sweeps its way in, turning the sunshine a bit milky from the west as we go through the afternoon. Temperatures are widely going to be lower than today, but I think many of us will take that for the sunny skies. Then, as we go later tomorrow and overnight into Sunday, a band of rain turning to snow across northern eastern parts pushes its way in. That then clears away towards the east through Sunday with further showery rain, which could be quite heavy, particularly across parts of the south as we go through the day, and that could cause some issues with the ground so very saturated. A bit of flooding is possible. More changeable weather to come as we go into next week.
Thank you, Britain, for all of you who listen to GB News Radio.
Whether you're at home or on the go, you're making us Britain's news channel and Britain's radio station.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. On the A720 in Edinburgh, westbound is restricted between Gilmerton and Lasswade after a broken-down vehicle. In Yorkshire, the A64 eastbound entry slip from the A1036 has one lane closed following a crash. In Oxfordshire, the M40 northbound at Junction 6 has two lanes shut after an accident, with delays of around 50 minutes. In Wiltshire, the M4 westbound entry slip at Junction 17 is closed because of animals in the road. And on the trains, cross-country is disrupted between Brockenhurst and Bournemouth, and Gatwick Express is disrupted between East Croydon and Clapham Junction. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good evening, welcome on board. This is Dewbs and Co. I'm Nana Aquia. I'm standing in for Michelle, and keeping me company this evening until 7, Reform UK board member Gawain Towler, and also Labour councillor Stuart Fawcett. Although I'm confused because he sounds more like Reform or something else. Even Conservative, but you don't sound like Labour.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see if maybe he diverges with this, because as our migrant crisis shows no signs of easing, Switzerland is doing something about their problem. Wonderful Switzerland, well done. They're actually going to hold a referendum in June on capping the country's population at 10 million. Switzerland's population was below 7 million in the mid-1970s, but now it is above 9 million. So what do you think? Is that good? Do you think that perhaps they should be doing that? And also coming up, backlash in East Sussex as the council plans to hand out Valentine gifts to migrants. We'll bring you that in just a moment. But let's go to my panel and see what they think. I'm going to start with you, Stuart Fawcett. They are planning to cap the population. They're going to have a referendum about it in June. What do you think is a good idea?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that this referendum has been brought about by petition. They can bring about legislation change with petition that people can sign and bring this around, which is a really interesting idea as it is. Whether it's a good idea or not, well, we're seeing huge cultural shifts and change, especially after free movement of people in the European Union. Switzerland didn't subscribe to that in the same way because it wasn't a full member, but it did get a very good deal with the European Union, which Britain failed to get when we left the European Union.
Well, no, but the reason why they got a good deal was because of lots of the bilateral treaties were based on free movement of people.
True.
So that's why, and so them doing this would risk that. A lot of it actually pins on that specific thing.
But they have the sovereignty to be able to make this decision for themselves. They seem to have gone they have the benefit of being able to do this the other way around. Do we wish to protect our cultural, ethnical and population sort of demographics? Do we want to keep that same in our numbers and how that affects our economy and keep the exterior trade? I understand, given how populations are changing so fast, why nations want to consider taking actions to slow that rate down.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Gwen Towler.
Well, they're saying that right now, before it hits 9 million or 10 million, right now 27% of Switzerland's population are foreign nationals. This is colossal, and it is. It has its history, it has its way of being, it is neutral, it doesn't take part in these multinational organisations as best it can, and it is extremely concerned about the complete change to its culture and who it is. And so it makes sense to me that a petition has been passed, it has hit the right level, and they're going to have this vote. And whilst I should see it's going to be very hard, and Europe will bully them like nobody's business, because Europe is quite happy to palm off some of the people who turned up in Europe onto Switzerland, and they've said that if Switzerland has the temerity to decide its own population size, that the European Union will use its economic might to bully them into submission. How dare a country decide how many people should live within its borders? How dare they?
But you have to make the consideration as well now about the use of economic sanctions and economic warfare, economic pressure
against a democratic decision of people.
We need to have a consolidated position on how acceptable that is and to what degree and for what reason.
This is bullying. This is Europe bullying a smaller nation because it doesn't like what that nation is doing. But if you cannot, as a country, define your borders and decide who lives in your country, then you're not a country. And Europe does not wish Switzerland to be a country anymore.
There's a question mark over this as well, which is the reason why we're having this debate a lot of the time is because people feel that integration has not happened effectively, that not enough intervention has happened with integration.
Can I refer you to the first story we talked about, where a man from Tunisia, but so-called from Wigan, decided to murder people. He wished to murder nationals of this country.
Absolutely. And part of integration is actually a vetting process to determine these people's backgrounds and ensure that you aren't having specific focuses where extremism can become rife.
Well, but extremism, it could be the rape gangs.
I don't think that's
we have had... There are this cultural difference between who we think we are and the welcome that we have historically given to people arriving in these lands and the people who have more recently arrived here who literally despise everything we stand for and introduce behaviours that are abhorrent and evil, such as the rape gangs, such as buying automatic weapons to blow away Jews at synagogue in their primary schools. This is happening in our country, and I applaud the Swiss for trying to do something about it.
Do we know why Switzerland specifically wants to cap it other than economical reasons?
Because 27% of their residents are foreign nationals. That's why.
But I think we always
of course you have the argument.
But we always have to ask the so what.
There's some doctors.
Because we talked about numbers and statistics earlier and it's the so what of that number, whether it's large or small, and the impact it's having on integration, crime, impact.
How can 27% not have an impact on those things?
Well, it depends upon their integration policies. If they have very active integration policies that show that you're getting community cohesion through social democratic
Too fast. There's no way any integration policy will be able to sort that out.
That's probably...
Which is why they've asked for the referendum.
They're probably able to measure that because of the fact they make the action taking these measures to make sure and having intervention by the state into communities to ensure that integration is happening. And if that is not happening, at least they can measure it because they have their finger on the
Then they've discovered it's not happening, and then what do they do?
But I think if you look back at Britain, for example, I don't think Britain has historically, across many different political parties, has intervened.
We've never felt the need until this mass wave of people.
And we can
our culturally, we don't demand. Our culture doesn't say that we go into people's houses and say you've got to think this way. That's not who we are. But because of the people who've arrived, we are having to be something we find absolutely uncomfortable. We're not an authoritarian people. But what you're suggesting is we have to be authoritarian with those people who arrived. Well, wouldn't it be better to not have them arrive in the first place? And that's what the Swiss are trying to do here.
But we're looking at this with the benefit of hindsight.
It's not hindsight. No, this is not hindsight. They're looking at it with foresight and saying, we know what will happen in terms of Britain.
The UK, the Swiss are trying to do something about it.
We now have seen these problems.
So why are we not doing anything about it, though? Your government are in power. They're not really doing much, are they? They're talking a good game. Shabana Mahmood has come up with the one in, one out, which is an absolute disaster. I mean, anyone could have told her that. They scrapped Rwanda, so there was no way of having any sort of deterrent whatsoever. And now we find ourselves in a situation where any Tom, Dick and Harry can come here from wherever, use the ECHR, paid for by the legal, all the legal shenanigans paid for by us. Then at the end of it, they're going to stay anyway. So why have we even bothered with it?
So I'll answer your question there about we're not doing anything, because I disagree with that. The biggest move that the Home Secretary is currently undertaking is a renegotiation of the ECHR. Now, the ECHR isn't the primary reason why we can't deport all these people. The reason they're coming in huge numbers because we're not part of the Dublin Agreement anymore.
No. How many people were actually sent back on that agreement? Over many years.
Specifically after
so over many years it was about 30. Nobody really used the Dublin Agreement. So there was not, people quote it as though it's a convenient thing to say.
We were sharing other migrants across the European Union, which we didn't keep in the new Brexit deal.
Yeah, but we could easily, if we really wanted to, ignore elements of the ECHR and send people back or process them or put them somewhere else.
Interesting.
We're not doing that. We could ignore things. Many other countries do exactly that. But somehow in this country, we think, oh, no.
Rule of lawyers.
We better not do that. And also, there's many lawyers cashing in. This is a business.
So it is a business.
I see your perspective here about the disregarding of the ECHR. I think the first thing to do is try and renegotiate it so you can do it in a lawful way.
You can't renegotiate it.
You need 10 countries.
You always have to try these things before throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
It's going to cost you a fortune. They're lawyers.
In disregarding. But in disregarding.
It's the
You
lawyers.
mentioned disregarding.
Yes, disregarding.
And I think this is a political decision that has to be taken and will be accountable to by the electorate. And at the next election, there will be a question of have you resolved the immigration issue? And if the answer is no because of the ECHR and you had the choice
or the Human Rights Act or other aspects of it.
Why do we have to wait till the next election? I'd be doing it right now. You've got a massive majority Labour, have a massive majority. They just get on with it.
One of the things I think is one of these... The ordinary people in this country look at it and go, what are you talking about? We are an island. Why can't we stop migration?
Well, that's a good question. A lot of people say just turn the boats back, but stay with us. Coming up, backlash in East Sussex as a councillor plans to hand out Valentine's gifts to migrants.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Dewbs and Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GBNews,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good evening, ding ding, the Dewbs Tavern is open. Yeah, hi, cheers. I was just looking forward to this.
I think we should say L'chaim.
L'chaim, I don't know what that means.
It means to life in Hebrew.
Oh, does it?
And today is Shabbat.
No, Hebrew, so, oh, really?
Yeah.
That's good, of course it is, yeah. Well, welcome on board Dewbs and Co. I'm Nana Akweer. Joining me, keeping me company in the tavern, Garan Towler and also Stuart Fawcett. Now, this one I really wanted to get to because it's a Green Party councillor for East Sussex is under fire after revealing that she will be delivering Valentine's cards to asylum seekers and she'll be taking her grandchildren with her. Anne Cross said that she and the children had painted the love gifts and will be taking them to the controversial Crowborough camp this weekend. Right, OK, my panel, what do you think, Gwen?
I watched this clip of her saying this at full council meeting this week, and I just sat there and thought, have social services been called? This is a safeguarding issue. She's taking her granddaughter to this place, and I'm sorry, she says, oh, there's no risk to girls and women from these people at the Crowborough estate. Well, in many places there have been risks. There have been charges. There have been people convicted from this style place, not maybe Crowborough, but elsewhere. It is irresponsible in the extreme. What on earth is she playing at? And of course, East Sussex is one of those councils that decided not to have council elections this year, isn't it?
Of course
so
it
they've
is.
cancelled the council elections. So trust me, if Reform win its judicial review on those elections, that woman is not keeping her seat.
Stuart.
This is very bizarre, isn't it? It's just Valentine's card. I mean, people in Britain have a lot of empathy and we have a lot of respect for each other, but I think taking Valentine's cards to people who you don't know,
undocumented young men,
is definitely
that your granddaughter, a young girl, was sending a Valentine's card to an undocumented man.
We've always we've always had a spirit of empathy, but maybe this one's a little bit
suicidal empathy.
Yeah.
It's what on earth are you playing at?
Now, that's not to say that all people in this camp are awful and rapists and all. That's not the point.
Of course not. But
the point here is that these are males who are of that young age, so they're sort of virile young men.
Deeply irresponsible.
Who probably don't have a woman or partner around at that time, and you are going in with a message and cards at a time when you would send that to your loved one, your partner. What is she playing at?
Fine. Almost any other day, send them a letter, send them a cupcake. Fine, no problem. But Valentine's Day is love, and it's sexual love. And I'm sorry, that is absolutely outrageous.
It's definitely very assumptive, isn't it?
It's just out of order.
They're going to understand what Valentine's Day is.
Well, yes, because most of them don't come from countries that are Christian.
It's a Christian celebration that's been more commercialised now since St. Valentine used to bring lovers together. So it's definitely very odd and probably sending the wrong message. I think there is a better way for compassion than this particular...
Any other day of the year... Any other day of the year, sort of pen pal letters, things of this sort to encourage that sort of thing. I can see a point there. But Valentine's Day?
And the thing is...
Just get over it.
As you said, Stuart, if they don't really understand what the day is about, and then somebody comes in with
love hearts
and cards, everyone understands what
it is. That says a lot.
Let me finish. So people coming in with love hearts and cards and things like that.
Will you be my Valentine?
What message are you sending?
And also, what message are you sending about yourself?
How weird.
And how condescending is that to other people?
And also... OK, I thought grandparents would walk over hot coals to protect their grandchildren. I always believed that. Maybe not in this woman's case.
Oh dear. It reminds me of that sketch, I can't remember the comedian, but when she used to go to prisons on death row and she'd marry someone on death row and because she was never ever going to see them again, so she just she would go in with gifts and all sorts.
Well, she may be seeing them again if they reply to the Valentine's Day card.
Would you particularly like a 19-year-old from Somaliland turning up on you?
Yeah.
It's just awful.
It is a bit grim, but Green Party councillor Anne Cross told GB News making cards to welcome people seeking asylum is a common activity for local people, school children and refugee charities. I joined in that activity with my grandchildren. The cards will go anonymously to the men in the camp as welcome from the local community. There has been much misinformation about the men who will be housed in the camp. You shouldn't know anything about them, do you? And this has created a climate of fear, but there is no evidence that children or women are at higher risk from people seeking asylum than other sections of our society.
Hold on. She says that other schools are doing this.
Hang on, be quiet. All right, listen, Stephen says lots of British citizens don't receive Valentine's, two-tier Valentine's care treatment. Well, listen, it's been great. Thank you so much for all your thoughts. Thank you very much to my panel as well, Gwen Towler and also Stuart Fawcett. I keep wanting to call him Stuart Tapp. And also thank you to you for your company. Well, I'm back tomorrow. It's Saturday tomorrow, 3 o'clock. Join me then. But I will leave you with this. Up next, it's Lee Anderson.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, very good evening to you. I'm here with your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Yes, there will be quite a bit of sunshine for many of us tomorrow, but before that we have a cold and for many icy night to come. That's because the weather systems that have brought today's cloud and rain, they are shifting further southwards, allowing for clearer, colder air to come in from the north. So still cloudy with some outbreaks of rain for a little while yet across central southern parts of England and Wales, but even here it's turning dry, and then widely across the country there'll be a lot of dry and clear weather. With that cold air and those clear skies, temperatures are going to drop, just about holding up above freezing towards the south in some towns and cities, but most places falling a fair few degrees below. In fact, across parts of Scotland it could get into negative double figures. So a harsh frost for many of us, widespread icy conditions. There